Hi, so I'm going to be starting out with the article on xenofeminism. And sorry if I'm a bit stuttery in this video. I didn't really understand the article too much, so it's a little bit hard to get my thoughts wrapped around it. So first, I was a little bit confused on what the exact definition of xenofeminism is. And so I looked it up, and the definition Google gave me was the movement that incorporates technology into the abolition of gender is a concept that is intersectional to cyberfeminism. This means that the movement contradicts naturalist ideals that state that there are only two genders and aim towards the abolition of the binary gender system. And so the article talked about how science and the field of technology is mainly dominated by men, and because of this, other people, females, people that don't identify with the gender or something else, tend to be more discriminated against, and also tend to not get their ideas that would help them and their inventions that would help other people out more. It said that the engineering and technologies are have unequal access to things like reproductive tools. There's an environmental catalyst, economic instability, as well as dangerous forms of underpaid labor, gender inequality. So like how women get paid less than men in a lot of fields, not just in technology, and how there are harmful bills and legislators that go against female workers, and it makes it harder for them to be really seen serious in the field, and not just females, but people that just don't identify with the male identity. And sorry, I'm just reading my notes. And I also found it interesting that while the definition does say that it wants the abolition of the binary gender system, in this article it did say that they're not trying to exactly destroy the gender binary, but to destroy the discrimination that comes with it, so that there won't be these type of issues that would need a movement like xenofeminism, to where you're trying to push back against this male-dominated field so that you could get new inventions, new things out that would help to destroy this form of inequality. And at least that's how I was interpreting this article. And that would make sense to me, because engineering and technology, especially technology now, is such a big part of our life. And there is that inequality, even to like people that are disabled, and say like reproductive rights for women, as it was saying, and also, for example, maybe hormonal treatments for transgender people. There's a lot of, and that all has to do with technology, medicine, engineering factors. And so I feel what this article was really saying was that there's a part where it said that we must engineer an economy that liberates reproductive labor and family life while building like better models, pretty much. Where it's kind of just trying to destroy this harmful not heteronormative, this harmful male-dominated norm, so that more people could have more liberation to just their rights in general. At least that's how I was saying, perceiving it. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult the way I'm explaining it. I was having a hard time with this article, just because I'm not really knowledgeable on anything involving like engineering, economic, or technology. So when I read these type of articles, I get a bit confused. Moving on to the letters of I'm sorry, I forgot her name. I believe it was Cece, as she was signing off her letters, the trans woman in jail, who was writing letters to people. And it really shows the violence that goes against trans women, and especially Black women, because as she was saying in her letters, that it wasn't just like an act of homophobia, but it was an act of racism that got her ended up in jail, because when she was defending herself and the police came to the scene, she was describing how they saw a black person and assumed that they were the criminal in the case, and saying how, especially for trans people, are already discriminated so highly and they are not protected, and it's even worse for black women who also are never protected. And separately, even like you see that they're not protected medically either. And I guess not so separately, because she was explaining how she was in jail, like bleeding. Her I think said a saliva gland was slit, and they were not giving her the medical treatment she needed. So these letters really do show how these women are struggling, and how it's not fair that protecting themselves gets them ended up in jail. That there needs to be a change to the laws and to society in general to protect these women and protect these people. And then going on to the article from Cheryl Clark, I believe is how you say her name, saying how being a lesbian in a patriarchal world is a sort of resistance as its own, because we live in a male-dominated world. And she was explaining in her article how men get their power from being able to control a woman, being able to control her body, control like her worth pretty much. And for having a woman to be a lesbian and not be entranced by a man, to not be in a relationship with one, it takes away their power. And so these women are going against this patriarchal norm that men are in power over them, because in a lesbian relationship there is no man there to be in power over you. But how that could also be very dangerous, as they were saying that sorry, just reading my notes, that if you're not under like the thumb of one man, means that you could be squashed by many, because in a heterosexual relationship there can still be that sense of misogyny, that sense of male dominance, but it's that one man, your significant other, that has that over you seemingly. But if you are a lesbian and you don't have someone already under your thumb, someone that already owns you, that you are essentially free to be squished on by anyone who is just cruel enough to do so, which unfortunately often the case is that there are a lot of cruel people out there who will take that chance. And she was also kind of relating being not just a lesbian, but also a woman in a patriarchal world, kind of similar to how black slaves were treated, saying that their power is being taken away from them, and there's not much that they could do to fight against it, that society is forming in a way so that they don't have their power, and that even after slavery ends, that it wasn't uncommon for black males to take power over on black women, because they were no longer competing with the white man, with the white slave owner. And so I thought that was very interesting, that comparison. And for the final one, sorry, I'm just moving my phone to read my notes. For the article, Black Queer Feminists Erased from History, it was a very short article, mostly talked about like history of how court cases, but I thought it was really interesting how race and gender equality really do tie to queer theory, how these factors do influence impact the queer community in general, and how the article mentioned that this woman who was wanted to be respected for her work had to kind of tone down the fact that she was a lesbian so that her work could actually be taken seriously, especially since she was also a woman of color, that her work was already at danger of not being taken seriously because of racism, and now also having to fight back against homophobia. And how I thought it was really impactful that they were saying that even though her work was kind of not exactly erased, but I guess erased in a way, but not like talked about, that not recognized, that it still influences current people today that do have the power to put those changes in action. And so I thought it was really interesting how even when queer people are being pushed down, even how people of color are being pushed down, that their ideas are still getting out there no matter what, by at least someone. If someone hears and carries on that message, that it's still possible. And so I thought that was really uplifting. And yeah, that's my notes.